We're going to shift the conversation a little bit. We're going to talk about bias and stereotyping. So we've reviewed automatic thinking, we've looked at mental models and creating our own version of reality. So now we're going to be discussing how that shapes bias, and then also what some of that impact that bias creates. So I think we'll go to Rachel. So how do people develop, stereotypes and bias?
That's a pretty big question. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that go into that, but a lot of it is based off of experience. So, when you take a look at, and there's a lot of videos and things like that right now, one that was doctored recently actually, but that are used as examples, for example, in the race space, that like, you're not born racist, you're taught racist thoughts. And so I think a lot of it comes from our cultural experience. It can come from our home experience. It can come from a traumatic experience, but they are basically all experiences that are shaping that. There is also, data and research that takes a look at things like whether or not, sort of that nurture versus nature argument, whether or not there are certain things that we are predisposed to be biased against or nervous about after thousands of years of evolution and those sort of things. But from my perspective and in the work that I do, most of what I see show up is experience, or at least that you can reverse it with deliberative thinking and new experiences. So if you grow up in a space where everybody looks like you, sounds like you, listens to similar music to you, eats the same food as you, talks the same way as you, then when you enter, an experience, whether that's because of the workplace or travel or venturing downtown for the first time, where you see people that come from different backgrounds and different ways of doing things and approaching communication, then all of a sudden that's where danger pops in and like that kind of fast thinking brain. And you might have bias because you're afraid, and whether or not those fears are justified is another conversation. But one way to combat bias through experience is to purposely and intentionally broaden what you are exposed to, right? And bring in new experiences. And same thing if you're parents, right? You can do the convenient thing, I guess, to go back to what we were just talking about, and even to reference sort of yours and Mitchell's comments around the easy thing to do to get around the city, but you could do the convenient thing and enroll your child in an activity that's 5 minutes from your house, and maybe that's in a suburban neighborhood where everyone looks exactly the same as you, or maybe you venture out the 20-minute drive because you want them to meet people from different areas and different perspectives. And I know people who've enrolled their children in different schools and things like that for those reasons as well. So I think from my perspective and from the perspective of the work I do, a lot of it is based off of your lived experience, but the good news is that you can shift that lived experience and purposely seek out different perspectives. And you can even do that via social media. Like there's apps that will filter for you and tell you even how gender balanced, for example, your Twitter feed is as far as who you follow. So there's ways you can do that even with tools if you want to, but a lot of it is just sort of intentionally seeking out those different experiences and those different perspectives and pulling them into your life on a daily basis.